So I'm going on a walk with the fam, right? And for some reason, my wife says the phrase baby boomers. And then my 6 year old daughter proceeds to ask,
What are baby boomers, Daddy?
and that leads me to talk about one of the most controversial topics in history. They didn't like the Jewish people because they were jealous of them. Because there were some Jewish people, not all of them, but there were some Jewish people that had successful businesses, like they owned their own little Chick-fil-A's and things like that.
Wait, Chick-fil-A's were alive then?
No, but they would own businesses like Chick-fil-A. You know how like you love Chick-fil-A?
Yeah,
They had businesses like that with food,
Are
and
there
they
cars
were,
alive there?
yes, there were cars were just starting to get popular around this time. But the cars look way different. Maybe I'll show you videos of what cars look back then.
And not everyone had cars.
Yeah, and a lot of people did. If you had a car, like you were basically rich. So they had a lot of businesses that people liked, and it helped them to make a lot of. Well, not all of the Jewish people, just some of them did. And the Germans basically looked at it as like, hey, we're trying to make ourselves not poor anymore, and look at these people. They're taking all of our money. They live in Germany. We're buying their stuff. We should not buy their stuff. We should kind of separate from them and only support Germans, not support the Jewish people, right? And the Jewish businesses. That's kind of how it started. And then it went from there, and they was like, actually, no, we're not buying their stuff anymore. Actually, we should move them all in one area of the city. So we're not going to allow them to be with us as much because they're different. They're bad, right? They're less than us. So let's put them in a certain area of the city. And you know what they call those areas? They call them ghettos, right? So like
Are
sometimes
there good areas or bad areas?
they were bad areas. They weren't safe. They weren't nice houses or anything like that.
They weren't safe? What do you mean they weren't safe?
So they would force people to live in a nice area like we live, and they would force them to live in not a good area, that it wasn't very nice. But a lot of other people like us. So they forced these Jewish people in these areas called ghettos, right?
How did they make them listen to them?
Because remember, the Nazis, they took all control of the country, and they had a lot of power. And whatever Hitler said went. So what Hitler would tell the police, hey, I want you to do this, the police had to do it. Hitler had complete control, so he had control over the military, and he had control over the police, and things like that, and he forced them to make them, literally with guns and stuff, to make them move to these areas, because they didn't want to go. They were crying and everything. So then, from there, he made the not good situation even worse. He wouldn't give them enough food in these places. He wouldn't allow people to visit those places. He wouldn't allow them to come out. Like, even like, oh, I want to go out and shopping. No, you can't come out. You got to stay there. Like, he wouldn't allow them to do all kind of stuff. So he got...
Not even go to a playground?
No, they had no playground. They didn't allow them to go to playgrounds or nothing. They didn't want them to have fun. He wouldn't even allow people to go to... Eventually, he wouldn't allow the kids to go to school. He wouldn't allow them to do anything.
So that helps them homeschool then?
No, they weren't really allowed to homeschool. Well, yeah, they could have, but they couldn't. Unschooling wasn't around back then, so they weren't as smart as us yet. They couldn't watch Puppy Pals in Spanish.
They didn't have TVs back then?
No, there was no TVs back then. That's another thing too. That's another thing. You know what they had instead of TVs? Books. You know how like you guys like going to the library and stuff? They didn't allow them to even read books because that was their TV back then, reading books.
And you know how we get the news from watching TV? They would get the news from listening to the radio, and eventually they didn't allow that either. So they were completely disconnected from what was going on.
So would they have to read the books that told them that?
No, they weren't even allowed to do that to a certain degree. So then, this is a really bad thing. So remember, some people were happy. They were making money. They had their own Chick-fil-A businesses, even though it wasn't Chick-fil-A, but kind of like their version of Chick-fil-A, right? Then they're moved to these not good neighborhoods, and then these not good neighborhoods are made worse, where they can't leave and they can't do stuff that they like and they enjoy and things like that. People are getting sick. They had to give up all their jewelry. Oh yeah, and also if they did leave, they had to wear a star, and it was yellow, and it was a patch on their clothes. They literally put it on their clothes. And that would tell all the Nazis, hey, this is a Jewish person, don't be nice to them. It was not a good place, right? So everything that you think of that you enjoy, they took all of those things away, right? So then they made it worse. Then they said, hey, we're moving you out of these ghettos and we're going to take you away to a place, to a camp. They didn't even tell them where they're going to take them. They just forced them to go on these trains. They shaved their heads. They took all their clothes off
Wait,
and
why?
they made them walk around with no clothes on, and then
Naked?
no clothes, yeah. And they put this powder stuff on them, and the powder is like to stop lice. Lice is like a little insect that can bite your skin and gets in your hair and things like that.
And
then
does it itch?
yeah, it does. And then they forced them into these labor camps. So it's like or concentration camps. So there was two types of camps. There was
Why
a labor
did they have
camp.
to shave their head off?
I think they did it because I think they used the hair to experiment with things. And then also, I think they wanted to prevent the spread of disease and lice because they weren't in clean situations. It was very dirty. Like it
There
was
were too many people.
And there was a lot of people too. So they did these things, right? And they forced them into two different types of camps. They forced them into labor camps and they forced them into death camps. So in a
What
death
do
camp,
death camps do?
this is going to be really bad and sad, okay? All right, so the death camps, that's where you go and they basically kill you. They made you die, right?
Why die?
Because they felt like you could bring no value labor. So women of a certain age, children of a certain age, and men of a certain age. So if you're like too old or too fragile, they basically sent you to a death camp and you were,
How did they make you die?
a lot of different really bad ways, and I'm not going to tell you the details. Okay. But just know that they didn't live after it. And then the other one with the labor camps. So then the labor camps, you would work. They would put you through various experiments because you remember I was telling you they were doing all kind of things to make themselves stronger, whether it be military or with science and things like that. So like when we do a potion in science, all it does is affect water. It's not a bad thing, right? But they would do science to affect people, living people, just to test to see what you can do. It gave them a lot of information, right? Because they were able to practice on people, but it was really bad for the people because a lot of people got sick or a lot of people died from it. And then also they would make them like move things, like they would make them break rocks up and things like that. And they wouldn't give them showers. They could never shower and things like that.
They'll be dirty?
They'll be so dirty, smelly. Everybody's so dirty. Everybody's so smelly. And they took their clothes off. I told you, and they put them in these jumpsuits that had stripes. It wasn't comfy at all. It was like very nasty. And the whole world at this point is realizing what Germany is doing. And Germany just didn't do it in Germany. They started doing it in Austria and other countries nearby, right? France, they started trying to even take over England and things like that. They were doing it in all these different places, right? And so they would go there, they would take over, they would remove all the Jewish people. And it wasn't just Jewish people, it was also black people or people African descent. There was also people from like Turkish and things like that. So anybody who wasn't who was different from them, they would put them in these camps and do these horrible things to them.
Why do they want to be mean to them?
Because they felt like they were better than everybody else, and they felt like everybody was mean to them in the beginning. So the whole world saw, Adolf Hitler, the Nazis are doing really, really bad stuff, not just in Germany, but all over the world. So they said, hey, we got to fight back.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender!
They get together, America originally, America didn't want to fight at all.
Nope.
America was like, hey, that's Europe's problem. You guys deal with it. You know, whatever's going on there. Yeah, we know Adolf Hitler's a bad guy, but we're not going to really mess with it. That's not our responsibility. While these people are really, literally in bad situations. They are in ghettos and then eventually in death camps or labor camps that are all really, really bad, right? The reason why we got into it is because Germany had an ally. An ally is like a friend. And Germany's ally was Japan. And Japan saw that America was getting stronger with our military. And they saw that we moved a lot of our military to Hawaii. A huge part of our naval fleet, those are the people to fight on ships, right? Our military that fights on ships. We bring them to Hawaii, right? And Japan, right here, sees it as a threat because they're like, hey, y'all are way over here, but Hawaii's right there. It's not that far from us, right? So they do something called a sneak attack. And they
I heard of a sneak attack in the movie. and soap.
Exactly. And they bomb us. Bombs are like big bullets that kind of go boom and explode. And they blew.
But how do they make it pop up?
They have airplanes drop bombs on us. The area is called Pearl Harbor. That is the largest attack on American soil, Pearl Harbor.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
So they bombed Pearl Harbor. So then America was like, hey, y'all bombed us. No, now we have to get in this war. This is truly a world war now, right? We say, hey, we're going to fight Japan and we're going to help the people in Europe
That are sick.
That are sick. And honestly, I don't even think we knew quite about the concentration camps yet.
Because there wasn't like TV. There wasn't like anything that you could
and the
just
German
turn on
and who else would know other than the people going through it,
We didn't really
or the
know.
people escaping. As we fought the war, that's when we realized, hey, they have these death camps and these labor camps, and they're doing these horrible things to the people. We just knew that he was taking over different countries and stuff. We get involved. Guess what?
What?
We're actually losing the war. America's losing really, really bad. The other countries in Europe are losing really, really bad. Like the Germans are winning. It's not looking good for us. A lot of people are dying from America. A lot of people are dying in Europe. There's Germans dying too, but they're just so strong right now, it's really hard to stop them. We get lucky with a couple different things. They made a wrong decision with attacking Russia during the winter.
Why didn't the whole world help since they were
did. Yeah, most of
But
the
why
world.
were they still winning?
Because
Everyone had allowed them to grow.
we allowed them
so
to grow too strong, basically.
And again, they're doing everything without regard to human life.
Yeah.
So their military advancements, they're experimenting on real people, whereas everyone else is trying to play by the rules to make sure that everyone is mostly safe.
Yeah.
But
'Cause
the Germans weren't doing that. They were experimenting on people.
And nobody else would go quite that far to figure out if it worked. So that's why we were so far behind them. So the Germans made a couple bad decisions, and we got a lucky break with figuring out their code, because they had a secret code that nobody could figure out. So between them making the bad decisions and us figuring out their code,
How do you figure out their code?
it was broken by this one guy. I can't think of his name right now. He figured it out. He figured out their sequence, which was really, really difficult. People thought it was impossible to figure it out, but he figured it out because he was very smart. And
Ooh, like me and you.
yeah,
And mommy.
and God.
Yeah.
So
Do you believe in God?
I don't know if he did or not. I honestly don't know. Nope. But anyways, so he figured it out, and that gave us a little bit of a chance, because now we could figure out what the Germans were doing, because we never knew what they were doing. And they felt like they always knew what we were going to do. So they always were like one ahead of us. So they attacked Russia in the winter, and it was too cold. And then we figured out their secret code, and that allowed us to kind of sneak up behind them. And we fortunately, when I say we, Americans with our allies, we were able to win the war.
How did the guy die in the war? Why didn't his other people do it? And
They captured them. He was killed. Actually, I think he killed himself. I don't remember
He killed himself.
He killed himself, right?
Hitler? Yeah.
Yeah,
They were closing in on him.
They were coming in
passing.
there. They were surrounding him. They were coming, and so he killed himself. And
Why
then
did he kill himself?
because he didn't want to surrender to them. And then
Surrender
means to give himself up to them, because he would have gone to jail. Just like his leader. So his Hitler was the top, but he had a bunch of leaders and generals below them. They were captured and they went to jail. They went to trial for crimes against humanity. They call them war crimes. So they committed these war crimes, because like even in war, there's certain rules. Like you can't do certain things to certain people. You're only supposed to fight soldiers, but they were fighting everybody, and they were doing bad things and killing everybody. They killed 6 million people. They were killed by the Germans. 6 million. It's kind of hard to wrap our head around how many people, but there's a lot of people. When he lost and we captured all his leaders and we captured all the Nazis.
Why did he want to kill himself? He would still be alive. He just wouldn't be happy.
I know, but I think he realized that he was going to get a really bad punishment. I don't know why. Like nobody really knows why, but that's the decision that he made. The people who were in Germany for years, so when they come home and they're like, we beat Hitler, we beat the Nazis, they were so happy and everybody was loving each other. And there's like these famous pictures where like people were kissing each other. And then everybody was super happy, right? And everybody was like, the world is safe. And when people feel safe, guess what they do? They have babies.
Yeah.
And that's when the baby boomers started.
Yeah, but how did they make the babies be in their belly?